Hey actors, it's Wendy Alane Wright, the Hollywood Talent Manager in Los Angeles, California. Today I wanted to talk to you about how to break down your script and make it more believable when you have an audition. Now, on the piece of paper, there are two-dimensional characters. And your job as an actor is to bring these people to life so that they become three-dimensional characters. Now, how do you do that? If you don't know how to do that, you're pretty much just going to learn the lines and then recite them and try to put some emotional energy into them. But that's not going to be enough to make it a three-dimensional character. So what makes a person, a three-dimensional character? Their memories, their feelings, their emotions, but mostly their memories that attach them to things that have happened to them in the past. They remember things that they felt in relationship to other people. They remember good things that happened to them, bad things that happened to them. So like if someone has amnesia, there's nothing there. They don't have any memories. Or if someone unfortunately is suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's and they lose their memories, they lose who they are, who they have been, their perspective, their history, their relationships, their memory. So your job as an actor, one of the things you can do to make your scenes believable is to create memories for your character. How do you do that? This person, you just get the script, there's the sides, there's the words, this is what they're saying. There's no memories attached to it. So it's not going to be very real. In method acting, they teach you to go into sense memory. They want you to remember put yourself in a place where you even recall the smell of the room, the weather, the temperature outside, what you wore and how you felt, because they want to engage your memory, your physical sense memory. I also want you to engage your memory by creating memories in your mind. Like when you have memories, you tend to search for the information and then say it, right? That's what human beings do. If they're not just reciting a line, they are thinking about what they're going to say, and all these synapses are connecting different information in your brain, and then you can see the process working of thinking, and then you say something, right? That makes the line much more believable. So how do you do that? When you get your script, one of the first things you do is you read the darn thing 5 to 10 times. Don't even start to memorize lines. You don't need to memorize lines. You need to start understanding what's going on the page, between the characters, in the scene, in these moments. So the first time you get a script, you go through it and you just read it from top to bottom, or your sides from top to bottom, including the instructions, the direction, the point of view of the camera, all the notes that are in the script, in the sides. You read every single line and read it out loud. Okay. After you've read that several times, think about your character. It's now time to create a backstory for your character. You need to start thinking, all right, who is this character? Because right now it's a two-dimensional person, and it needs to become a three-dimensional person. So what are these characters' memories? What was their childhood like? How do they feel about their parents, their mother, their father? You think, well, why is that important to this scene? Well, because that person a real person has those memories. It's part of what makes them who they are. So it also informs how they react to everything based on how they were brought up, how they think, what's happened to them. So you want to start making a backstory, and if it's not written in the script, you create it. It doesn't really matter if the choices are right. It matters if you know how to do this and make choices. Because a casting director or a director can always say, let's go a different direction and make this choice instead. But they need to see that you can create a three-dimensional character and that you know how to make choices. So you go to your script and you've got your character's name is Jane. I like that name. I said Jane. I like that name, actually. So your character's name is Jane. Excuse me. Jane has a life previous to this moment in the script. She has friends. She has maybe a brother or sister. She has parents who've either been there for her or not. Maybe she's a stepchild. Maybe she's an adopted child. Maybe she has a mother that's been abusive or a father that's been abusive. Maybe she's got a great family. Maybe she's never seen a terrible thing in her life. Maybe she's had only hardships. You don't know, but you have to create that for her because that's what separates her from a two-dimensional and a three-dimensional person. So you sit down with a piece of paper and you start writing her backstory. Where was she born? Does she have siblings? Who are her best friends? Why are they her best friends? What's her favorite subjects at school? Did she do well in school? Was she a bad student? Did she get into trouble? What kind of trouble? Has she ever had something terrible happen to her? If so, what? Create a character, a real person. If she's having a conversation with that teacher in the script, has she ever had a conversation with that teacher before? What happened in the last conversation with that teacher? Was it a good thing, bad? Did she feel good about it? Did she feel bad about it? Is she suspicious of that person? Does she like that person? If she's having a dialogue with a friend or a boyfriend or a husband or father, how does she feel about that person? What was the last few interactions they've had? What historically has happened between them? That informs how she feels about them right now. If you are talking to someone you hate, you're going to have a much different reaction to them than someone you love. If you're talking to someone that's screwed you over, kids could be watching, never stops me, but this time it does. If you're talking to someone who's screwed you over, that's going to have a completely different energy in you. You're going to look at them suspiciously. You may be hesitant. There's all kinds of stuff. If it's someone you trust with your life, that's a different experience, right? So you've got to make this stuff up. This is called making acting choices, you know. And then you've got to sit and think about that. Create the imagination, use your imagination and envision those things happening. Envisioning that person screwing you over. How that felt. What they did. How it hurt you. Just thinking about that creates a memory that is now attached to this character. You've now created a three-dimensional aspect to a two-dimensional person. And when you're saying your lines and you're doing your scene, your mind is going to replay the conversations that you had while you were working out the scene in your backstory. Your mind is going to reach in and remember those things, and that will give that. Why am I turning pink and blue? I just saw a flash of pink and blue. I hope it hasn't been doing that. That's an interesting look. I don't know what that's called. It's called the X. I'm being ridiculous. Anyway, so that's what you want to do. You want to create memories that your mind can go to and search through while you're talking. That's part of what makes a conversation genuine, and that there are real memories in there that you can feel about, that you relate to, that you're reacting to and through. Okay, that's really, really important. Creating the backstory, you might think, oh, it's so much work and it's only 4 lines. Yeah, someone else is going to create the backstory and they're going to go into that audition and beat you because they took the time to create the backstory, which makes their acting better, which will make your acting better. So acting is not just memorizing lines and getting up there and speaking them and not meaning them and not having any relationship to what you're talking about. That's not acting. Acting is really taking the time to develop the character, to develop the person standing in the room in the audition, so that that person is a 3-dimensional character with emotions, memories, feelings, anxieties, and you need to invent what those are. That's called your choices. You also want to go through the scene and think, okay, what does my character feel when she's saying, you stole my book? You can't just say, you stole my book. You actually have to go through and think, what does she mean by that, really? What does she mean by that? You stole my book, and the way to do it is finish the sentence. You stole my book because you're too lazy to do your own homework. You stole my book, and now you're pretending you didn't. You stole my book and you gave it away to a homeless kid who didn't have any books. Right? Depending on how you end that sentence determines how you feel. You saw my expressions change based on how the story I attach to the line. So, you stole my book and burned it. So you won't say the rest of the sentence that you create, you won't say that out loud when you're doing your lines. But in your mind, if you made the choice that you stole my book and burned it, then when you say that line, you stole my book, the thought and burned it is in there even though I'm not saying it. You stole my book? Right? In my mind I'm thinking, and burned it, and I see the burning book and I'm like, what the fuck? And if I say, you stole the book and you gave it to a homeless kid who didn't have any books,